Real stories, real shocks. Are you ready? Subscribe now.
I sit on the couch, watching the sunset light the room in warm orange hues through the window. He's sitting next to me, reading a newspaper, and I know he suspects nothing. Only I know the truth, and that thought both scares and strangely gives me a sense of freedom. How did I get here? How did I end up in a situation where my heart is torn between feelings, and at the same time, I'm hiding a secret that could destroy everything? We've been together for 12 years. At first, everything was perfect. He was attentive, kind, loving. I felt happy. We dreamed of a shared future, building our home and family together. But over time, I started feeling that something was missing. Somehow everything became too routine. I started seeking new emotions, new feelings, and then he appeared. It was at the gym, where I decided to start training. And there, in one of the gyms, I met him. He was an instructor, and immediately caught my attention. His gaze, his confidence, and his ability to understand people made me feel special. At first, we only talked about workouts, but then he started having coffee with me after sessions. It seemed like an ordinary interaction at first, but I began feeling my heart race every time I saw him. I became obsessed with this new emotion, but at the same time, I was afraid of ruining my life. So I started meeting him secretly. I would say I was working or had something to do, just to find time for these encounters. With each meeting, he became more important to me. His gaze grew more attractive, and I couldn't stop myself anymore. I told myself it was temporary, just a weakness. But deep down, I knew it was more than just a fling. I was falling for him. But the more I met with him, the more I started to feel guilty toward my husband. I became distant, unable to keep the emotional connection. I was living a double life, and it was driving me crazy. He began noticing that I was pulling away. His looks became more penetrating, but I kept making excuses. I started avoiding his questions about where I had been or why I came home so late. Meanwhile, in my new relationship with the instructor, I felt more alive. He was everything I had longed for in a partner, passionate, open, and skillful. But it was only temporary. I knew this couldn't last forever. And then everything started to fall apart. I couldn't hide my feelings anymore. I became cold toward my husband at home, and the gap between us grew. He began suspecting something was wrong. And one evening, while we were having dinner, he asked me if there was something I was hiding. I couldn't look him in the eyes. I knew this moment would come, but I wasn't ready for it. I lied again. I told him I was just stressed at work, and that everything would be fine. But I saw the doubt in his eyes. The next few months were hard. My husband and I couldn't find common ground. I was emotionally torn. On one hand, I loved him, but on the other, I couldn't let go of what I had with the other man. I knew that this would lead to great disappointment, and that I had to make a choice. But I couldn't make it. I let the situation linger, because I didn't want to lose what I had. Eventually, I decided to stop seeing the instructor because I realized I couldn't live like this. But it was too late. I understood that I had already lost the most important thing, my honesty. Since then, I've been trying to understand if there's still a chance for our marriage. I often ask myself, was it worth it? Could I have avoided all this? But now I only know one thing. There's no turning back. Sometimes my heart still longs to hear his voice and see his eyes. But now I understand that I can't turn back time. So sitting in the silence of this room, I ask myself again, what now? I wake up in the middle of the night, my heart pounding, a cold sweat on my skin. I've been having the same dream for the past few days. It's always him, my husband, and the other man, both of them looking at me with eyes full of disappointment and betrayal. But every time I try to explain, the words get stuck in my throat. I wake up just before I say anything. I roll over in bed, careful not to wake him. I look at his peaceful face, his steady breathing. He doesn't know. He can't know. But in that moment, I feel trapped. The weight of my secret presses down on me, making it harder to breathe. I roll out of bed, as quietly as I can, and make my way to the bathroom. I turn on the sink and splash water on my face, trying to shake off the feeling of guilt that's beginning to consume me. The days blur into one another as I try to hold everything together. I continue living this double life, pretending everything is fine, when inside, I'm falling apart. I cut off all contact with the instructor, thinking it'll ease the tension. But instead, it only amplifies the ache inside me. I miss him. I miss the thrill, the excitement, the passion I felt when we were together. The emptiness in my heart is growing, and it's beginning to affect everything around me. My work, my relationships, even my own sense of self. Then, one day, my husband comes home with an unexpected look in his eyes. There's a certain intensity about him that I've never seen before. I can feel something shifting in the air. Something is about to change, but I don't know what. He sits down at the kitchen table and looks at me without saying a word. For a moment, I can't breathe. The silence stretches out between us, heavy and suffocating. Finally, he speaks. "I know," he says, his voice low but firm. My heart stops. "What do you mean?" I ask, my throat dry. He leans forward, his eyes never leaving mine. I know about him, about everything. I feel the world spinning around me. How could he know? How long has he known? Who told you? I whisper, my voice shaking. No one, he replies. I've seen the signs, the late nights, the strange behavior, the way you've been pulling away. You thought you could hide it from me, but I've been watching. I don't know what you've been doing, but I know it's not just work. I want to speak, to deny it, all. But the words won't come. The truth is out, and there's no turning back. He stands up abruptly, walking towards the door. I can't stay here anymore, knowing what you've done. I need space. The door slams behind him, and I'm left standing in the middle of the kitchen, numb. I try to process what just happened, but everything feels like a blur. My heart is heavy with regret, but there's also a strange sense of relief. The secret is finally out. But what now? What happens next? Days pass, and he doesn't come home. I try calling, texting, but there's no answer. I feel more and more isolated with every passing moment. And then, unexpectedly, the instructor reaches out to me. His message is brief but direct. I miss you. We need to talk. I'm torn. The last thing I want is to make things worse, but at the same time I can't ignore the pull I feel toward him. I agree to meet. The next day, I find myself sitting across from him in a small, dimly lit cafe. He looks at me with those familiar eyes, intense, searching. But there's a difference now. He's not the same person I met all those months ago. There's a coldness to him that wasn't there before. "You've made your choice," he says, his voice flat. "But now you have to live with it." I swallow hard, trying to find the right words. "I never meant for any of this to happen," I say, my voice trembling. "I don't know what to do anymore. My life is falling apart." He leans back in his chair, his gaze never leaving mine. "You can't undo what's been done. You've hurt him. You've hurt me. And now you have to face the consequences. But you have to ask yourself, what do you want?" The question hangs in the air between us. What do I want? I don't even know anymore. My heart is torn in two directions, and I'm standing at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take. I can feel the weight of my decisions pressing down on me, suffocating me. Just then, my phone buzzes. It's a message from my husband. "We need to talk." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. It's happening. He's finally ready to confront me, to face the truth. "I have to go," I say to the instructor, standing up abruptly. I don't even wait for a response before I leave the cafe and rush to my car. When I arrive home, my heart is racing. I walk inside and there he is, standing in the living room, his face unreadable. The silence between us is deafening. "Sit down," he says, his voice steady but tinged with pain. I sit across from him, my hands trembling in my lap. "I don't know if I can forgive you," he says, his voice cracking. "But I need to know. Why? Why did you do it?" I take a deep breath, knowing that this moment will define everything. The days that follow are filled with uncertainty. My husband and I try to rebuild, but the cracks in our relationship are impossible to ignore. We've both been hurt in ways we can't take back, and though we try to move forward, there's a lingering distance between us. Every conversation feels strained, every touch feels unsure. We're two people who once shared everything, but now barely know how to talk to each other. I try to go back to the life we once had, to find the woman I was before I made all these mistakes. But I can't. The guilt eats away at me, a constant presence in the back of my mind. Every time I look at him, I see the disappointment in his eyes, the way he pulls away when I try to reach out. The love we had is there, but it feels like it's been buried under the weight of everything I've done. Then, one night, as I sit on the couch in the dimly lit living room, I hear a knock on the door. I open it to find him standing there, the instructor. The man who once made me feel alive. The one who lit a fire in me that I hadn't known existed. His eyes meet mine, and for a moment, I'm paralyzed. I want to turn away, to close the door, and forget everything that happened between us, but something stops me. The longing in his gaze, the way he looks at me as if he hasn't given up on me. "I know this isn't right," he says quietly, his voice tinged with regret. "But I need to see you. I can't just walk away." I feel the pull, the same magnetic force I felt when we first met. It's undeniable. But I look back over my shoulder, where my husband is sitting in the other room, his presence a silent reminder of the life I've destroyed. I can't do this, I whisper, stepping back from the door. I've hurt too many people already. The instructor looks at me, his expression unreadable, before turning and walking away. I close the door slowly, the weight of that moment sinking in. I've made my choice, and as painful as it is, I know I've chosen the life I want to fight for. The one with my husband. Over the next few weeks, my husband and I go to therapy. It's difficult. It's messy. But slowly, things start to shift. We begin to communicate again, to rebuild trust, to find pieces of ourselves we thought we had lost. There are days when it feels impossible, when I want to give up and walk away. But I don't. I stay. I fight. And so does he. One night, after a particularly emotional therapy session, my husband takes my hand in his. I don't know if I can ever forget what you did, he says, his voice thick with emotion. But I can forgive you. I don't want to lose us, I look at him, my heart full of both sorrow and hope. I don't deserve your forgiveness, I say, my voice shaking. But I'll do everything I can to prove to you that I want to make this work. We stand there for a long time, just holding each other, feeling the weight of the past and the possibility of the future. It's not a fairy tale. It's not perfect, but it's real, and it's ours. Months pass, and life starts to settle into a new rhythm. We're not the same people we were before, but we've learned to move forward. The scars of the past are still there, but they no longer define us. They're reminders of what we've survived, of the battles we've fought together. I find myself more present in my own life. I take up hobbies I'd forgotten about. I reconnect with old friends, and I focus on being the woman my husband deserves, one who is whole, who is honest, and who no longer runs from the hard truths. As for the instructor, I never hear from him again. I know now that our time together was a chapter in my life I had to go through to understand what I truly wanted. I don't regret it. But I also know it's not the life I want to live anymore. In the end, I've learned that the path to healing isn't always straight. It's messy, complicated, and painful. But it's also filled with moments of clarity, moments of growth, and moments of redemption. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I'm stronger than I was before, and I'm not afraid to face whatever comes next. And as I sit next to my husband, holding his hand as we watch the sunset, I realize that sometimes the hardest journey leads to the most beautiful destination. We're still here, together, and that's enough.
Thank you for subscribing. More shocking stories ahead.